Beautiful people, welcome to a conversation I never thought I'd have on Instagram Live. Let me see. Hello, hello, welcome. Welcome, welcome. If anyone has a question about practice before we kick off, feel free to ask that question. I might have time to answer one question before Kadara joins. And also feel free to use the question box during the live. I'll try to keep an eye on the chat as much as I can, but no promises. I want to preface this conversation by saying that there's a reason why I'm not talking about spirituality and all the woo-woo stuff, because my take on this is that it can be distracting from your practice, because Vipassana meditation is all about grounding yourself in the present moment and sensations and actual things that are happening in your environment and internally as well for you. So, and I think it's important to, while you trying to train your mind, while you're training your mind, it's important to stay away from all the spiritual stuff, because spiritual stuff only reinforces all of the things that distract you from your actual practice. Hang on, I saw a video somewhere, a question about practice. Somewhere, let me scroll. Is mindfulness meditation the same as Vipassana? So Vipassana meditation is mindfulness meditation. Not every mindfulness meditation is Vipassana. And Vipassana has many traditions. And, hang on. Did it work? Did work. Hello. Hello, hello. Let me just finish answering this question. Vipassana has many traditions. I was trained in Theravada tradition, and for instance, a lot of people know about Goenka's practices. Goenka's meditation is a free meditation retreat that you can sign up for like 10 days, and it's global, and you can do it anywhere, and it's free. It's like donation based. But Goenka meditation is a different tradition, and they teach, it's great to do it, but in my opinion, Vipassana in Theravada tradition, the way I teach it, it's better for what we're doing here, specifically for people who have met their other self, their other incarnation, their twin flame. So obviously I'm not talking about twin flames as like a romantic notion or spiritual connection. I'm talking about twin flames as a mostly scientific phenomena. So that's why I'm so specific about the traditions of meditations and Vipassana. Anywho, hello Kadara.
Hi.
Long time no see.
Yeah, I know.
So I'll preface this by saying Kadara is my spiritual teacher, and Kadara is basically the reason why I'm talking about twin flames online. That's right. There was a gap in my knowledge around this, and I met Kadara and everything suddenly made sense. So, and I also want to say that Kadara is like a library, and we're trying to understand one book. So that's why I'm gonna try to steer the conversation in a certain way. But if you don't understand something, or if it's like too broad or it doesn't make sense, that's okay too, because Kadara has just too much knowledge for
Just
me.
ask. If I say something that doesn't make sense, just ask. I'm like really, really good with analogies and things like that. So.
Yeah, this is also true. So I actually got a message yesterday from someone that started by saying, the person was like, how the fuck do you know what you know? And I'm like, I don't even know how to like start answering that question. So let's just start by, can you answer that question? How the fuck do you know what you know?
I feel like it's like a two-part question. Um, there's a part of us that has this like inner knowing, which people call their intuition, where it's like your intuition is kind of like your connection to the divine or God, source, Buddha, Allah, Krishna, whichever you believe in. And you have that inner knowing where there's just a lot of stuff you know because it's coming from what most people would call source. And then there's different levels. If I had to break it down in levels, and we talked about this already, so in many different practices, everyone believes different things, but I'll try to make it simplified. There is like the all, which is like the source, God, whomever you believe in. Then there's like the collective consciousness, which is grouped. For a lot of people seem to think the collective consciousness is the same, and it's not in many practices. Because, like you said, some people might believe in Hinduism, some people might believe in Buddhism, some people might believe in Christianity, so on and so forth. And then underneath that layer, or between those two layers, you kind of have like your spirit, and then there's a difference between your spirit and your soul. Your soul is kind of like the part that carries with you in this physical body that you have right here, that has your identity and your ego. And then your spirit goes on like the transpersonal journey. You can go beyond this universe. So when you just know something, it's because your soul, which is walking around every single day with you, is trying to figure out its identity. That identity and ego that you have is learning certain things and remembering the things that your spirit knows, while your spirit is connected to the collective consciousness and what people would consider God or source.
Okay. Don't feel overwhelmed, everyone. Tell me a little bit about your background. I mean, obviously I do, but people don't know like
So
how.
yeah, so my background is I grew up Baptist as like a kid, and I probably pissed everyone off at church because I just had so many questions. Unlike, so you're telling me that God just flooded all these animals and made them all die, but only brought two of each one, but all the birds and fishes and stuff survived? Like, that doesn't make sense. So I just questioned everything growing up. And then when I was a kid, my parents got stationed in Japan. And while I was in Japan, uh, outside of this crazy turn of like spiritual events and stuff like that, I ended up being raised by mystics because my parents weren't always around. And the guy that lived near where I lived, that took care of me a lot, he was a Japanese mystic known as the Yamabushi. So they're very deep into spiritual practices. Like these are the people way, way back in the day. So I'll just break down Buddhism. Buddhism started with like mysticism. Basically, think of all these mystical, magical people living in nature. The emperor is like, hey, I want you to teach me everything you know. So they all went into the temple, into the castle, and all these things like that. But they started getting bored and they didn't like being away from nature. So half of them split and the half that went back into nature, what most people would call mystics. And those that stayed are where Buddhism was developed. So Buddhism is like a mix of mysticism and so on and so forth. So in being raised by them from about age 12 to about 16, I literally just chose to travel around the world in life. I've been to over 100 countries just to really understand every country's spiritual practices, their belief systems, and to find where the gaps are so that I can connect it in a way that it all makes sense for me.
Okay. Thank you for that overview. Let's start by chatting about the belief system because that we had a beautiful conversation, and I think if I remember correctly, that was a conversation. Was that the context of? I think we were talking about karma, right?
Maybe, I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure it was like karma and how your belief system affects your
Oh,
reality.
for sure, for sure.
And I remember, because I always had that notion, I'm like, I know that your belief system affects your reality because I have so many people come into my DMs and they're like, well, I'm on a twin flame journey, but I'm also Muslim or I'm Christian, and it doesn't make sense. Like I'm explaining this through reincarnation or multiple incarnations, simultaneous incarnations, and they're like, we don't have that in our religious structure. And I'm like, well, that's just I'm applying language to a phenomena. Language is fragile and language is inherently dual. So language is just cannot possibly explain something that is like felt and experienced. So it's like such a limited medium that we are working with. And I think you and I had a conversation in regards to karma and like belief. So can you chat a
No,
little
for
bit about how your belief system affects your reality?
So what I've learned in traveling is like there's a lot of people that believe in karma and there's a lot of people that don't believe in karma. And based on your belief system, if you believe in karma, depending on how you believe karma is, I'll say, executed or taken action. Some people believe if I do something wrong will happen to me, which just comes back to like alchemy, the law of equivalent exchange. If I do good things will happen. It's where the manifestation comes in, self-concept. If I think positive thoughts, more positive things will happen. Part of that is true. Unfortunately, then it comes to, well, if I'm always thinking positive and I'm always doing good things, then why do bad things happen to me? And that's where people are like, well, something's wrong with my karma. And that kind of ties people back into, well, is it a karmic debt? Is it something where I'm experiencing where maybe something happened in a past life that's reoccurring now? Most people that I've met when it comes to karma, they believe that it's just some type of, if you think of it like a wallet, you have your wallet, you have nickels, quarters, dimes, dollar bills, 10s, 20s, 50s, and so on and so forth. And if you have darker coins, then you probably did some bad stuff, and it tries to balance out with the lighter coins. I personally feel that when I do greater things in the world, greater things happen for me. And just because something bad happens, it doesn't mean it's like this karmic thing where I'm in trouble. Bad things just happen. Like I learned that the world doesn't suck, the world just simply is. So made my life easier where like instead of focusing on, if this bad thing happened and overthinking it, I just tell myself if something bad happens, what's the lesson? If something good happens, what's the lesson? I'll just spend my life focusing on, hey, how can I do more quote good or things that are more in alignment, I'll say, because good and bad are controversial. I see karma as more of a when I do things that are more in alignment, then I stick more true to my soul and my spirit's path. When I do things that are less in alignment, then I start to fall off that path and it feels like bad things or karmic things are happening.
Why good and bad is controversial?
Good and bad is controversial because good and bad is based on your own perception of the world. So someone might think that eating meat is good, and a vegan or a vegetarian might think that eating meat is bad. So in that context, it's really hard to say who's right or wrong. So that's where a lot of these terms get muddled or mixed up. And that's why when I grew up, my mentor wanted to make sure he's like, focus on what's in alignment and what's not in alignment with you versus trying to figure out, is this good or this bad? And they will say there's a difference between like good and evil, though. Evil is, someone or something that has the intention to harm other people for malicious reasons versus someone that wishes to see other people thrive and live healthier in life.
And how would you for yourself personally describe in alignment?
Something is in alignment. The in alignment part comes up the more, I would say, the more inner work that you do. You'll know something is more in alignment when you start trusting your gut slash intuition. So you have your intuition and your instinct. Your intuition, as I said before, is kind of like your direct connection to God, source, collective consciousness, and your spirit. Your instinct is the stuff that's like ingrained into you. So if I go into the kitchen and I'm making something and I burn my hand, you best believe my instinct in the future is don't put your hand there no more. It's not intuition, that's instinct. It's already happened. It's coded into your DNA. They talk about it when they talk about crows. If you throw something at a crow, it's going to remember who you are and it's going to remember that path. And then when the next crows are born from that same murder of crows, the babies will remember that path, and some of them they believe will remember that person. So certain things are encoded into you, certain things are not. As you start to develop your instinct and your intuition more and more, you'll start knowing what's in alignment because you won't question it or doubt it as much. When you doubt something heavily and you go into all these different worlds of like, oh my God, all these things are going on, that's usually your ego. Your ego is just like, hey, this ain't gonna work out. It's probably not in alignment. That's your fear. But when it's intuition, you're like, will this expand me or not? It's very subtle. You're like, it's not so many options. This will either expand me or it won't expand me. I don't think this will expand me, so I'm not going to do it. When you start having more clear thoughts like that, everything in life becomes so much easier.
Mm. Yes, and I also, the way I explain, like people I work with, I explain the importance of the body and how it is important to connect to your body in when you're trying to distinguish and discern what is right and what is wrong. So for me, what is right or truth feels light in my body, and what is wrong and false and a lie feels really heavy in my body. And that is why I'm so specific on practice, 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 practice. Like, don't pay attention to your psychic gifts, don't pay attention to your spiritual gifts, because your mind is not trained, which means that you are, it's all muddled with your egoic layer, with your experiences, with your stories, with your culture, with your religion, with what your parents believe, with points of view that you have about the world. It's not helpful, because then you can't discern what is actually your intuition and what is your projection, the projection of your ego. And because people on this journey who have met their other incarnation, it's all about coming back to the consciousness. We're literally stripping off that layer of ego. We are taking that off, and we are remembering that it is consciousness. So Vipassana meditation does that. That's what Vipassana meditation does. It trains your mind, and it reminds you that you are not your thinking mind. It's like one of the most common questions I get. Like, what do you mean you're not thinking? I don't understand. What do you
Yeah.
mean separating yourself from the thinking mind?
It's a hard concept for a lot of people, especially in the Western world, when it comes to that mindset. Because there's like two things. One that you brought up was like truth, and something I see a lot of people struggle with is, and I'll simplify it. Just understand that your truth right now may evolve. So don't beat yourself up if like your truth right now is like you're Christian or you're Muslim or Buddhist and you like believe in this thing. And if you change your truth later, it's okay. Your truth gets to evolve. It's allowed to evolve. It then becomes a part of your identity and things like that. So don't get so caught up and be like, oh my God, something's wrong. Like, what's wrong? What's going on? And then that concept in Taoism that I learned growing up was you are not this body, you are not this mind, you are not these thoughts, you are simply, like a soul or a spirit experiencing them. And it takes people a while to understand, like, well, how do I disconnect from those things? It's literally practice. You'll practice disconnecting from it. It means that when a thought comes to my mind and my mind's like, I'm so happy, you don't have to be like, no, I don't feel that feeling. That's not my feeling. You're a human being in a three-dimensional world, and you're also this cosmic being at the same time. There's this beautiful story in a koan, which is like basically a Japanese poem, and they're talking about Buddha. And there's this bird that announces like everything that's going on. And the bird's like, Buddha has now stepped into the high seat, which means Buddha has now stepped into like the fifth dimension and beyond. And then Buddha sits there, Buddha learns all these concepts and all these things like that. Then Buddha is stepping off of the seat, and the bird basically announced Buddha is now stepping off of the high seat, which means even the Buddha would go into the fifth dimensional knowing that Buddha had to return to the 3D world. You're basically going up there to learn whatever you need to learn and then finding a way to integrate it into your everyday life. There are so many people in the Western world that are like, I'm a fourth dimensional, fifth dimensional, eighth dimensional thing, and nobody understands me. And I'm like, it's not that no one understands you. You have not yet learned how to translate what you learned. And that means you can't teach it yet. You're supposed to learn to integrate that into 3D. No one gets to escape the 3D. You can end your life or whatever you want to do, unalive yourself. That's not escaping the 3D. That body's gone. The identity and the ego that you had are gone. But now your soul is like, fuck. Like, I missed some lessons. I'm going to have to repeat that shit when I go back. So, all right, here we go.
Yeah, something that came to mind while I was listening to you, and now I lost that thought. This is like two neurodivergent brains on my life. This is like perfect combination. No, I remember when my Buddhist teacher, Buddhist monk, for those who don't know, I was trained by Buddhist monk in a classic Theravada tradition in a Buddhist temple for almost a decade, and he was telling this story about Buddha going to the fifth dimension. I actually don't remember which dimension, and I was seeing them like, what does it even mean? Like, what do you mean he went to the fifth? Like, I don't understand. What do you mean? To me, it was like really hard to grasp. What do you mean? Like, Buddha is a person and he goes into like heaven? Like, what? It took me a second to actually grasp all of those concepts.
Yeah.
And it's something else that you mentioned. It's like, well, if you go to Kadara's profile or my profile, we don't talk about spirituality that much. The reason why I started talking about twin flame journey in the way I explain it, so your simultaneous incarnation, is because I know that many people are in pain. And I know that the sacrifice I'm making by exposing myself and this like identity of mine, like I'm coming out of the woo-woo closet, because I know that I can help many people through that. But I'm a trained mental health professional and an artist. I'm a filmmaker. That's like my main identity. If you click on Kadara's profile, he's dancing and he's like somatic healing. It's all about that. Like we don't talk about spirituality because that is how you translate your wisdom and your spiritual gifts and your spiritual knowledge into the 3D. So what's your take on that? On the
Honestly,
woo-woo closet.
no, it's a technically that's sales and marketing. You know, like I learned a long time ago that when it comes to sales and marketing, you need to start speaking the language of your audience. So everyone knows who Rumi is. Everyone's like, Rumi the poet, so amazing. But the person that was more amazing than Rumi was Shams of Tabriz. Shams of Tabriz was Rumi's mentor. Like if Rumi never met Shams, I don't know if Rumi would have got where he got to. And Shams would always talk about wanting to get people to understand all of these different concepts of, hey, like don't try to be the people, learn to walk among them. Like don't become one of them, learn to walk among them. Learn to speak the language they speak. So from a marketing and branding and sales and content creation mindset, I'm like, okay, what do people struggle with every single day? People struggle with moving their body. I know deep down inside they're struggling with their business and their mindset and all these other things like that. But that's not the thing they're really looking for. Most of the people that go to my content on my page, they want to move their bodies more. They want to get out of the stuck energy. The thing is, when you want someone to basically pay you or come into your space, you need to make sure that either you get your foot through their door or they take the first step into your door. And then once they do it, it's like, I can take you wherever I want. So like every single one of my clients, they come to me and they're like, Kadar, like I really want to start dancing. I really want to start moving my body more. I know I've got all this stuck energy. I'm like, cool. We can talk about navigating things that might have happened when you were younger, navigating things that are going on as an adult. This is like somatic healing and stuff like that. They're like, awesome, cool. Day one call, I'm like, yo, let me tell you about the soul, the spirit, manifestation. I'm about to tell you about God and Jesus. Let me like just fucking expand your mind because you've already stepped through the door. I can do whatever I want now that you're in that space. And that's why a lot of us do understand, hey, on social media, they're like, his profile says somatic work, he dances, he moves. The thing is, even though you see those bios that we have, when you see us talking or when you see someone's writing, you feel something inside of you. That thing that you feel inside of you, that is your spirit. That's the connection to the collective conscious of what we really want to talk about. We just know that, hey, this is the easiest way to like reel you in. Because if she just popped online and was like, twin flame this, the algorithm's also going to be like, oh, I'm only going to show you to people talking about the twin flame. And a lot of people that want to know about the twin flame aren't actively typing in twin flame. You're scrolling and watching videos about all these other things. So we're showing up in the way that we know we get your attention best.
Yeah, and something that we talk about all the time on like offline is marketing. It's like we literally talk about it all the time, all day long. Marketing, 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 AI, all of that. So yeah, it's all about marrying your spirituality with your 3D, and that's the balance, and that's why it's like vipassana, 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 meditate, 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 because the more you practice, the easier it gets to walk that line between spirituality and the 3D world and the reality and like your ego and your spirit. And the way I approach the topic I'm talking about, I'm addressing the ego and I'm addressing consciousness as well at the same time. And depending on the person, this is also an interesting point to mention. Like I'm very good at holding multiple truths and being the paradox. Like I'm fine with paradoxes. I think paradoxes fascinate me and I am a walking contradiction. And sometimes people would hear me say something that contradicts the thing that I was saying yesterday. And I'm totally fine with that because the way I see, and I know that you see yourself in exactly the same way, like the way I see myself, I'm a transmitter, I'm a conduit. So if a person comes into my world and they need to know something, they need the knowledge, and I know that that knowledge can land through this particular story or this particular lens, I'm going to use that story or lens for that person to get that knowledge through me. So I don't care which modality I use to actually get that point across.
I think it's important to be multidimensional and have the ability to explain things in different ways. I feel, and there's nothing on anyone that chooses one path. I just feel like it makes it easier to be able to express things. We were talking about that before, where I told you I had that TikTok conference, and I was talking about, I was like, divine masculine, divine feminine. And someone that identified as being non binary was like, that doesn't make sense to me. And my initial brain thought was like, how does it not make sense? Masculine, feminine, masculine, feminine. You've all read the Kabbalah and you understand this. But for this person, deep down inside, it didn't make sense because they don't associate with being masculine or feminine. And I was like, okay. So I had to think about it really quickly. Thank God my brain, it's a neurodivergent, operates at like super high keyframes. My brain was like, well, the divine masculine can be seen as like the container that you hold, the space, as well as the navigator, like the GPS, and it's also like a force of nature. And then the divine feminine becomes basically what you use to create, what you use to destroy. It's also like the flow that you have in life. And it's kind of like that healing energy. Once I explained it like that, it became so much easier for people to understand. And I was only able to do that because I've learned different practices and things like that. I've learned about Buddhism, I learned about Hinduism, I learned about Christianity, I've read the Quran, I've studied all these different things because I'm like, oh, they have very things in common. So yeah,
Yeah,
just
I feel like the twin flame space is saturated with misinformation because people somehow took the divine masculine, divine feminine, like from the spiritual, from not the spiritual, what's the polarity realm, and applied it to this situation. And it's kind of applicable, but it is not because again, like the twin flame system is for the feminine's awakening, the feminines, because we have different genders in the representing the feminine. And the masculine awakening, it's not part of the twin flame system. It's a separate thing. We have different ways of awakening. Every single person has different way of awakening. And you can awaken through, depression. You can awaken through loss. You can awaken through grief. You can get awakened through meeting your other incarnation. There are so many ways to awaken.
I awaken every time I eat food. I'm like, oh.
Let's chat about the most misunderstood, I think, topic is people think that it's split soul, and it's not split soul, it's split spirit. So could you explain that a little bit to us?
Yeah. And again, this all comes down to everyone's beliefs. Anything that we share is not like, hey, this is the one way, the only way to do it. So everyone has their own soul and everyone has their own spirit. And then there's like the collective spirit. And my understanding from what I've seen, your soul literally just belongs to you. Again, when you are born, you have a soul, and that soul starts to develop and learn the identity and the egos and all that stuff like that. A lot of belief systems believe that when it comes to these connections that we have, that you have this one spirit that has like four arms and four legs and two heads, and then that spirit is split. And then that spirit is now trying to find the other spirit that vibrates at the same frequency that it is. Some people believe that the spirits are connected beforehand. Some people believe it's afterhand, afterwards. And then the next belief system is, oh, is time linear, not linear, because everything's happening all at once. For the most part, it is a paradox, like Rashani explained earlier. It is true and it's not true that time is all happening at once, and time is linear and time is also non-linear. So in this 3D world, time is linear for us. We're moving through a linear world where I'm operating at a certain frequency and my twin flame is operating at a similar frequency somewhere. It is true that they've already met each other and in the vastness of the world, but as the 3D, they haven't met each other yet. We haven't met each other. They're somewhere out there. I'm going to meet my twin flame at some point. I'm just, as a human being and a soul, I'm just not at that space yet. That my spirit and my higher self, or people might call it, has already met them. So I'm literally, again, trusting my intuition. The more trust you have in your intuition, it makes it so much easier to get back into alignment of what's going to happen. And this is why a lot of people believe that from the instance that you're born, all of these memories that connect you to your twin flame, your higher self, and source, it all flashes in like the blink of a millisecond. And then as you start to navigate things in real life, when you experience what people call deja vu is you remembering something that had already happened, has already happened in this nonlinear world. The more deja vu experiences you have, it's almost like hitting a mile marker or milestone in your soul and spirit's journey that's bringing you closer to the twin flame and bringing you closer to God.
Hmm. And again, we're talking about intuition, and intuition. The more you practice, the clearer your intuition. I saw someone asking a question about Is it helpful to go to Vipassana meditation retreat, or is it like escaping from your life and purpose? I can share my experience with this. So when I was trained 12 years ago, I ended up at the Buddhist temple just out of the blue. It just freaking happened. Like I met someone randomly, and she's like, "Oh yeah, there's this Buddhist temple. I'm gonna take you there tomorrow." And she just took me there and introduced me to my teacher, and I started meditating. And there's definitely when this whole world of spirituality like explodes, and you're like, oh my God, like this 3D world makes no sense. Like this is nothing compared to what is possible. There's this tendency of like go into like this woo-woo realm and just stay there. But for me personally, even when I started meditating and my psychic abilities kicked in and all the strange spiritual stuff started happening to me, I already knew in my body that I need to stay here. And at some point, I will be talking about it. At some point, I will be teaching this. At some point, I will be helping people through the knowledge that I have. So to me, it was like, yes, I can stay here because I have inclination. I had my Satori. Satori is like remembrance in my second meditation. So I think I started my second meditation for like a couple of hours, and I didn't even know that that's like not normal. You're not supposed to spend a couple of hours in meditation. And I remembered everything from my past life, from my experience of Buddhism. So all the knowledge that I knew already about Buddhism just downloaded into my mind. And to this day, I have a Buddhist friend who read so many books and studied Buddhism, and he actually knows everything. Like he knows the rules, he knows the names, and he laughs at me and he's like, Rishani, you will like your Buddhism is felt, like you feel it, but you know nothing about it. I'm like, this is so true. Like I know nothing about it because I never studied it. Like I was taught through practice, and my knowledge comes through my body and my practice and the remembrance. So my connection to the soul, the spirit, and the field of consciousness.
That's like,
Yeah.
I would say you just made like a really good point of where um, a lot of us on our journeys, like you said, we'll go to these retreats and go to these in-person things, and we connect to that collective consciousness that is that space, and we're able to download all this information, and we know it naturally and can explain it more naturally than someone that has studied all of the books and read all of the scriptures and things like that. Because there's so many times, many of you may experience it, where you'll start sharing a concept with someone, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that's this." And you're just like, cool, I didn't know there was a name for it, but awesome. It's going to happen. So just embrace those moments where you're able to download things that have been written in books, whether you believe in the Akashic Records or the collective consciousness or whichever. Know that you can still download like Neo and Trinity and them did in the Matrix.
Mm. I, at some point, asked you a question about the trees, and I think that, look, it's not an analogy, it's an explanation, but that explanation really helped me understand the soul and spirit as well. So could you chat a little bit about like what the tree is and like what does it represent?
You
Why
mean
it's
like
so
trees
important?
outside?
And how it's kind of like what is the spirit of the tree? Like what is the function of the tree?
So I learned that trees are pretty much like USB drives, basically. So a tree is planted into Gaia, which they believe, in at least alchemical texts, that Gaia is the universe in itself. So the Earth that we're all on is this huge universe. Every tree is like a hard drive that's plugged into the Earth, so it has all the information that all the other trees have. So this is why a lot of people feel so drawn to trees. You feel drawn to a tree because the tree has so much information. When you sit with the tree and you just lay against it, it feels like the tree is taking everything from you because the tree knows everything that every human's ever experienced. That's why people don't want so many trees to be cut down, because every time you cut down a tree, it's kind of like removing one more hard drive that actually benefits us. And like a hard drive, that information that's in the tree is then transmuted alchemically into the air and the oxygen that we breathe. So we're really not just breathing air and oxygen. What we're breathing from the trees is more knowledge and wisdom. And that's why I always tell people to spend more time in nature so that you can download more information from them.
Perfect. I can see the question in the chat. Celibacy on this journey while in the 3D world. Any guidance on that? Kadara, do you want to take that one?
So I was celibate for a little over 6 years at one point, and my whole journey of celibacy came about because I was reading some ancient texts in Taoism, where they explain that one of the four main ways that we leak energy, is through sexuality. And this is kind of that topic I talked with you about. So basically, it comes down to what you see, like it's all your senses, what you see, what you taste, what you feel, and so on and so forth. So many people have such leaky sexual energy online at such a very subconscious level, and it's very subtle thoughts where you look at someone and you're like, damn, I'd crack. Technically, you're leaking sexual energy. You may not say it to the person, but a small part of you goes towards that person. Oftentimes, when people are experiencing celibacy, you're cutting off one of your senses, which is the sense of touch for the most part, when it comes to connecting with someone else. When you are intimate physically with someone, you are transferring, with fluids, or you're transferring energies between that person. Celibacy is a way for you to just focus on yourself. Celibacy does not mean you can't self pleasure yourself. It just means you're not allowing yourself to take on or connect with other people and leak or receive their leaky energy, which is why I did it for so long. I'm like, I'm going to be celibate so I can better understand myself, so I can see where I'm leaking. When you are celibate, it's kind of like going on a water detox. Because you're not consuming any more foods, your brain can now relax a little bit because it's not having to focus on breaking down all of the heavier foods that you're consuming. Same with celibacy. When you're celibate, your brain's now like, okay, not messing with nobody else right now. I can really go inward and understand who I am. Let me look at all of these different ways I give myself to people. How am I giving myself to others that I'm not giving to myself? So I hope that answers your question. I know we are saying in like the 3D world. So the more work you do in the 3D world, the more information will then transfer as you start to go into these higher realms of consciousness. When you are celibate and you go into the fifth dimension, which is, beyond time and space, or, some people make it like the 10th dimension, which is this infinite space of no rules or regulations or guidance and beyond time and space, it's easier for you to process all these things because now you're not leaking that sexual energy. Now you're not leaking your ego. You're not leaking your identity. You're actually just in a space where you have just ultimate instinct. You can receive from every single part of your body now. It's not just your brain is receiving, your fingertips are receiving, your nails are receiving, every hair on your head is receiving. And that's why celibacy, I think, is so powerful. It's just deeper understanding of yourself to where your entire body now becomes able to transfer and transform information.
Yeah, thank you for that. And my 5 cents on this is that it's also, again, because I'm working with egoic layer as well, celibacy can be, so when people are hypersexual, that can be a trauma response. It's not because they want to, they want so many people, it's because they're coping, and that becomes trauma response to something traumatic because they can't regulate. It becomes like a regulation tool for people. And the more you work on yourself and heal yourself, heal your egoic layer, like why so many people on this twin flame journey talk about healing. It's like, yeah, healing is beautiful, but healing is not going to take you to the consciousness level. You can heal all you want. You can go to therapy. You can do shadow work, but it's not going to do what you need to do on the journey because you need to remember that you are a soul. It's the soul's journey, the twin flame journey. It's not the egoic layer, but it's important to understand why you're doing the things you do, or like why your twin flame does the thing they do, and then understand it as a fact. It's like, oh, okay, they are coping. It's a coping strategy. And then instead of creating another layer of a story about, oh, I'm unworthy, that's why they went and had a relationship with someone else because I'm not good enough, you just take it as a fact, and then you bring yourself back to your body, to your breath. This is the present moment. I can't change this. This is out of my control. What is within my control is going within and concentrating on my breathing and grounding myself in right now, in this very moment. So you have to navigate, you have to learn how to navigate between the knowledge, between the spiritual realm and, again, like egoic avatar, and how that affects your spirituality as well. What else I wanted to cover? We spoke about the soul and the spirit, kind of touched on the multiverses.
Oh yeah, multiverse is amazing.
I
So
don't
yeah,
even know where to start there.
yeah. Basically, when it comes to the concept of the multiverse, this ties back into the multiple dimensions. So there's a belief system that we have the microverses and macroverses. So some of you watched Men in Black, where you saw that scene in one of them where they realized that even Earth and this universe that we're in was just one marble inside of this big locker full of multiple marbles. So it's believed that there is a version of you inside of every single universe that you can connect to or tap into, which is where they talk about quantum leaping, which is basically where you now quantum leap or move into that body with your spirit and you kind of either inhabit it or you're just like looking through it and watching it. This is why sometimes when people dream, you're like, oh my God, the dream felt so real. I woke up sweating. I woke up with marks on my body. It's because you inhabited that body and you transfer that information that that version of you experienced. Now, the way that some spiritual people use this to like advance in life, the way that I was taught was if you want to learn something very specific, if you connect to a multiversal version of yourself where time is different, say like people saw in the movie Interstellar, when they got trapped in after Gargantua, they realized that I think 1 hour was like 10 years or something like that. So if I meet or connect to a version of myself where 1 hour here is 10 years there, I then have to build that connection to being like, hey, I need to learn more about blank. That version of me can learn it, and then it will transfer that information back to me. And now I have this knowledge of all these different things that are going on. It depends again on your belief systems and things like that. But me personally, I've learned so much information by connecting with the multiversal versions of myself. And they try to show it in so many movies. They showed it or in TV series. Well, Altered Carbon did very well at that.
I
Interstellar.
couldn't watch that. It
Yeah.
was too much
Yeah.
information for me.
Yeah, Altered Carbon did a great job of it. Interstellar did a great job of it. John Carter, that movie did a great job of it. I think John Carter was one of the ones that did the best. Like, if you want to know about like the multiverse and connecting to different versions of yourself, where you understand that like this human body you have is like your original body, and you have to keep it safe. This is why people will say when you're going into higher states of consciousness, make sure you are able to protect yourself. Because as you leave this body and you go somewhere else, there's going to be spirits and entities and beings that will try to take over this body because they know that your soul is outside of it for the moment, which is like astral projection. But your soul is can only go so far, and then it taps into your spirit, which is like way farther down.
This is ties into the question that someone just asked. Any
Okay.
advice on integrating your awakening gifts with your 3D purpose service? So my take on this, again, I'm gonna bring you back to meditation and practice. Practice, the more you practice, the better you are actually grounded and rooted in reality and what is truth. Vipassana translates as insight knowledge. It allows you to see things for what they are. We mostly don't see things for what they are. We see things through the lens of our ego projection. So we don't actually distinguish. We don't see things for what they are. We always put it through the lens of our ego and our experiences, stories, traumas, culture, all of that. So the more you practice, the easier it gets for you to integrate it. And what I always say for people who are, especially those who've been exposed to the narratives of you have a shared mission, you have, you need to do beautiful things with your twin flame. Your mission is to awaken to the fact that you are consciousness. That is your number one mission. Because when you do, you can do anything that you do is your service. Literally anything. You can go into a supermarket and you can have an interaction with the cashier there and you can affect their life. And that will be your purpose. It's not something like, oh my God, I need to have a charity now and that is my purpose. Like, don't wait for anything extraordinary or phenomenal happen to you to understand your purpose. Your purpose is literally living here. That is your purpose, because when you think about it, soul comes here to inhabit the body, to have these experiences. And it's like we were laughing about that. It's like ultimately it's futile because we're like trying to gain all that knowledge about what is the soul and the field of consciousness. But you literally came here to experience yourself as a body, like, to have sex and get drunk.
Yeah, do it. Remember that video I had? I said, do someone.
Yes, like, like you have to ultimately remember that it's like this is fun, like it's fun. You're living in a 3D reality. So don't take it too seriously. It's actually field of consciousness. The field of consciousness is like very playful. It's a playful energy, the way I experience this anyway. Anyway, do you have anything to add to that, Kadar?
Yeah. I just remind people, just try to approach things with a paradoxical mind, like allowing things to be and things to not be at the same time. Two truths can exist. And I saw that really well in a study they did where they basically had a soccer ball and one side was white and one side was black. And they had two people on the opposite ends and they were debating and arguing what the color was. And then when they switched sides, they were like, oh shit. And that's where you realize it's all about perception. To the way one person perceives something, that could be their truth. So it doesn't make them wrong. It just means, oh, that's your perception of the world and all those things like that. I know I just saw someone ask about how you connect to the different versions of yourself. For most people, it helps when you do some form of like transcendental meditation. I
Mhm.
can't say, hey, this is the best one. It's going to be different for everybody. You could connect to that version of yourself because you're doing mushrooms, because you're walking in the middle of the forest and it starts raining. Like whatever triggers it for you, triggers it for you.
Mhm.
Please be mindful of like your spiritual awakenings and knowing that you don't have to do all the same stuff everyone's doing. Like you don't have to go into a cave and experience pure darkness for a week in order to reach a certain level of enlightenment. That's just something that they tried. Me personally, and when I was in Japan, I spent 30 days in pure darkness. What I learned in that experience about myself, not everyone has to do that. It just made it easier for me to learn because I learned so well being in solitude. So find something that feels more in alignment with you. And just because it feels like it's in alignment, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't mean that the thing you failed. You're just now have the data of like, okay, this isn't something that triggered this effect. Don't beat yourself up over it. Maybe you need to try it again in a different way or try it again later. I've met so many people that are like, oh, transcendental meditation didn't work for me when I tried it 5 years ago. You're not the same fucking person you were 5 years ago. Try it again and see if it works and go into it with a paradoxical mind. Yes, I have all these ideas of how this spirit experience is supposed to look. Guess what? Most of the spiritual stuff that happens to you is not going to come to you in the way that you think it's supposed to look. I assume that, oh, when it comes to like these spiritual experiences, it's going to happen when I'm in nature. No, you can have a really deep spiritual meeting when you go to Whole Foods and you literally talk to the cashier and something clicks and you're like, oh shit, that's what that thing is. Amazing. And then when it comes to even twin flames, understand that it's also paradoxical. You and your twin flame, it doesn't mean you're both supposed to meet each other and spend the rest of your life together. Some people, them and their twin flame, they're never together physically. They have just both chosen that you and I are energetic matches. We're both going to change the world, but I'm going to do it from here and you're going to do it from here. And they're so connected and they live their whole life loving and enjoying that because that's the agreement that they have. Everyone's agreement is completely different.
It's I remember when someone introduced that idea to me, it really triggered me so much because I'm like, I just want to be with my person. What do you mean? Like it was super triggering. And I think it's easier to understand when the more you connect to the field of consciousness, which is to say, the more you just be instead of doing and trying and oh, I'm gonna sit down and I meditate. Transcendental meditation is ultimately there's no observer, so you're not actually concentrating on anything. You just be. You're just sitting there and you're taking everything in. And I think someone just asked a question about around manifestation. How can you manifest specific things while accepting things as they are? It's actually easier because when you're accepting things as they are, you don't have resistance to reality because we all resist reality so fucking much. It's like, no, you know what? I don't like this thing, and I'm gonna add an additional layer and spin the story about why I don't like it and why this thing is supposed to be the way, like why I want the dream house, I want the dream house. And the more you resist, the harder it is for you to manifest. When you see things as they are and when you accept things as they are, you're aligning yourself with the state of non-attachment, which is to say, so the way I explain it, non-attachment comes to understanding the nature of impermanence. And the nature of impermanence is like the universal rule. Nothing lasts. Everything changes. Everything constantly changes. And the reason why we observe our breath in the abdomen is because it's the easiest way to observe the nature of impermanence. It's rising and falling of the abdomen. It's literally inhale and exhale, inhale and exhale. Everything comes and everything goes immediately, it changes all the time. That is the nature of human body, the nature, like the flower blooms. So when you understand that there's a nature of impermanence at play, and you detach from your idea and your expectation of how things are supposed to be. It's like, no, I need that rose to bloom tomorrow because I have guests over. So I need that rose to bloom so it's pretty. When you have that expectation and things go sideways, you get upset. But who created that expectation? So who ultimately created that suffering? It was you because you were resisting reality. So when you in the state of non-resistance and I call it intention, you just set intention. you and I were just talking about personal stuff just before this live, like how our lives kind of like
Hmm.
aligned, and you and I had exactly the same experience of like surrendering to the divine, because like I was broke and I was in complete fear. I was like, I literally don't know how I'm going to pay my rent. Like I have so much happening in my life right now and I literally don't know. And I sat there and I thought, you know what? I'm not gonna let this fear take over. I'm just gonna trust, because like I'm a soul ultimately. Like what can happen to me? Like nothing can hurt me. So I'm gonna trust that things are gonna work out. That's when you manifest. That's how you quantum leap. You stop thinking how to get yourself out of there. You stop thinking of the steps that you need to take. And
Yeah,
just
yeah, it really comes down to like understanding that the whole point is to be like, I don't have any desires. The human party is going to have desires, but that soul and spirit inside of you is the one that detaches from how it's supposed to look. It's okay for the human part of you to desire things, to want things, to be jealous and all that stuff. Like own and honor those feelings. Like the greatest spiritual teachers, even like the Buddha, it's not that Buddha like didn't desire anything ever. Buddha had desires. The desire literally comes from, I would love to help a lot of people. And then you let go after that. I don't know how it's going to look, and it's going to happen. And then as you just start doing things and living life, that's why people were like, start living from the mindset that it's already happened. No, just start living life. As you start living life, knowing what it is that you desire, if you disconnect from like the identity and you detach from like how it's supposed to look, you literally end up in the unknowns. And this is why the people that manifest or have the most amazing things, they're constantly in the unknowns. I made a video about it dancing today. When you can allow yourself to quantum leap and jump into the unknowns and go into that space with curiosity and love and compassion for yourself, it makes it so much easier, because what happens is you look back and you're like, okay, I was all the way the fuck over there. Me, I was broke and basically homeless last October. Now I have like a lovely 3-bedroom apartment in Austin. I was like a quantum leap, don't know how I got here, but let me actually take a couple steps back. And then I'm like, oh, these are the things that led to me getting here, because you also get to understand there's so much happening behind the scenes that you don't even realize. There's people right now telling other people about you, sharing your content if you're posting online, that you'll never know about. And what will happen one day is someone will come into your space and be like, hey, I'd love to work with you. And then deep nitty gritty of it, you're like, how did you even hear about me? Oh, 3 months ago, so and so told me you did this, and I started following you. So this is why people say trust the process. It's something that people hate hearing, but the process really is understanding you have no idea what's going on outside of you. Don't try to figure it all out. Just start living a life of alignment, and all that shit's really going to work out for you.
Yeah, and the way I explain it through the egoic avatar, because to me, even like 2 years ago, that sounded like I was investing in so many coaching and energy coaching and doing like family constellations and therapy and all of that, because I'm like, I am not here. I didn't come here to survive all this shit and live a mediocre life. I'm gonna heal myself and I'm gonna make something of me. Like I was that ambitious. I'm like, I'm gonna get myself out of this hole. But the thing is, the way I explain it, and it never made sense. Like, trust the process. I'm like, what the actual fuck? Like, I can't pay my rent. What do you mean, trust the process? The way I explain it is that our ego, so our soul's essence, is the state of infinite possibilities. And from the quantum perspective, it's called superposition. When the particle is not just a particle, but it has the wave function. So it can behave like a wave. It can end up anywhere. And twin flame system is the quantum system. That's why you can only be with your twin, because when you are in superposition, and superposition translated into Buddhist language is the state of non-attachment or enlightenment. And our soul's essence is the state of infinite possibilities. So the superposition from the quantum perspective. But when we translate that onto the into the egoic language, what our ego understands as what our soul understands as the state of infinite possibilities, our ego understands as uncertainty. And then the fear kicks in, because oh my god, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know how I'm going to pay my rent, and we interpreted that through fear because we have negative bias built into us. So the more you work with that uncertainty and the more you train yourself to sit in the uncertainty, the easier it becomes for you to manifest.
Mhm.
So there are so many like elements to this, and it all comes down to body as well. It all comes down to inner work and self work. But again, healing, it has nothing to do with the twin flame journey. Healing has to do with your own personal growth. It's not going to affect your relationship with the twin, because the only thing that affects your relationship with the twin is coming back to your soul's essence. That's it. But healing is not separate from, it's separate, but it's not. Healing is for you, and remembering that your consciousness is for your twin flame system. So it's like it's a constant navigation between like those two things, egoic layer and consciousness and greater things.
One of the things that helped me out so much last year, and I led like an entire webinar on it. And at first, everyone was laughing when I brought it all up, but I was like, I learned manifestation on such a deeper level because last year I actually went and watched every episode of Pokemon from the very beginning, and I watched every single movie as well. And if you notice, in the very beginning of Pokemon, his first thing was, I'm going to become a Pokemon master. When you make it to the very last episode, one of the last things Gary says to him is, so did you become a Pokemon master? And he literally continues his journey. If you notice, Ash accomplished so much shit, won so many fucking tournaments. Those were never his goals. His goal always was to become a Pokemon master, but he learned that it's easier to do that when he detached from becoming the Pokemon master and just started focusing on what's here in the present moment right now that's in alignment with me. I'm going to go to this gym. In order to go to this next gym that I want to go to, I need to get these things. In order to do this, I need these things. But ultimately, he just kept being nice to himself and having compassion, as well as showing that same love for Pokemon. He worked with so many Pokemon on his journeys, and his whole goal was like, oh, being a Pokemon master actually isn't having all of the Pokemon. It isn't winning all the championships. It's literally this journey. They have this saying, I believe, I learned from Shams Tabriz, where he said it's not about the fisherman or the fish, it's not about the baker or the bread, it's not about the butcher or the meat. It's literally about all the experiences you have with yourself and someone else or others that brings you closer to God. So when you allow yourself to not focus on, is this going to work out as this thing? If you're being guided towards it, go with it. It's still going to lead you in some way, shape, or form into the thing you ultimately want.
Yes, again, trusting your intuition and trusting that. So the way I can explain it, I can add to that. So if you have like some kind of vision of your life in mind, it's not just a vision, it's also energy. So try to connect to that energy and feel that energy and get yourself familiar with that energy. And then when you encounter something, so you encounter a choice, so someone like calls you and say, hey, do you want to go to this event? Try to see whether the energy of that event aligns with the energy of the vision of your future higher self. And if that aligns, it doesn't matter whether or not thematically it's connected to your version. It's like, oh, I'm going to meet someone because I want to become a Hollywood star and this is a Hollywood party. No, no, no. It has nothing to, because you know how many coincidences happen and like how many random things happen, and you like meet someone who is you would never meet otherwise, but they somehow unlock all the possibilities for you. So just connect to the energies that you're experiencing, like with humans, with things, items, with events, and see if that aligns with your highest self, with the energy of your higher self, with the energy of the life that you want to lead ultimately. I know that we are running out of time, but we really want to quickly touch on the divine masculine, because I feel like it can be such a helpful thing to understand for people, the awakening, the process of the awakening for the masculine, which has, again, I'm going to say this again, has nothing to do with the twin flame journey. Your masculine twin does not awaken on the twin flame journey because they are being led by you, because you have the shared consciousness. And I go deeper into this. I went deeper into this in my previous life. So just watch the recording about that. I explain it kind of in detail, but I think it would be helpful for all genders to understand the process of the masculine's awakening. And it's mostly to do with like the egoic layer. But how do men or masculines awaken?
Yeah. So when you're explaining like the twin flame system and like the feminine, that's why I explained earlier, like the divine feminine is like the creation and the destruction of something, as well as like the flow. So like that journey doesn't exist without the feminine. It has to be created. It's created somewhere. And then if it doesn't work in another lifetime, then it's destroyed. And the whole journey itself is actually flowing. That masculine aspect awakens when the container is created. Most men do not tap into the thing because they have not created a container for themselves to experience it. If men that do not do any of their divine feminine work or even heal the feminine inside of them, if they're not even open to it, it's never going to start. You have to create the container, the safe space. Either they have to create it or it's created for them. This is why there's a lot of women that are like, oh my God, I feel like I always have to, be the therapist for the man and all these things like that. It's because most men don't know how to create that container. The masculine energy that a lot of you women have, you created the container or someone created it for you. And then within that container, you were able to actually navigate and do all the things. Most men, I'm ex-military. Shani knows, like I was in Iraq, I've been in Afghanistan, I've been in some of the craziest, darkest places, done terrible things, watched terrible things. And because no one ever showed me how to create a container to heal, I just didn't know how to heal. I just shut everything off. I blocked it all out. Yet in the instance, there was a female soldier that literally was breaking things down for me of life and love and connection and stuff. When it finally clicked, this dome dropped over me. And I was like, oh shit. So this is what it looks like to be in my feminine energy. This is what it looks like to create and flow from this nurturing and caring space. I'm going to start loving on myself a little bit more. I'm going to start allowing myself to express my feelings. Now, as I'm going through that space again, I have the container itself, but now I need some type of direction and navigation. I have to know who it is that I want to become. Most men that I've met have no idea who they want to become, or the version of themselves they want to become actually isn't the version of themselves that's going to help them in life. They're like, I want to become someone of status. I want to have lots of money. And they do. They create that container and they start having lots of money, but ultimately they don't meet that person because that person isn't an energetic match. That person may not want all of those things at like the highest level of who they're becoming. And you really need to learn who you're becoming and start focusing on who you're becoming. Once you know who you're becoming, the journey awakens so much faster. And please understand, women, yes, some of you are going to have to be the one that teaches these men how to actually create that container and space, and it's not going to be fun for you. And I'm not saying to stick around. When someone's super fucking toxic, and I'm not telling you to beat yourself up and be like, no, this is my twin flame. No, you don't have to take all that shit. Don't let anyone verbally, emotionally, energetically abuse you. You don't have to stay around for that shit. Don't beat yourself up because you feel like this is the person. You're going to know when you're in alignment, like, okay, this person doesn't know, I want to support them, I want to help them. And sometimes a part of that twin flame journey could be, for the time being right now, I need to disconnect from this motherfucker. Like, this guy's got to go do some work. He's got to learn some things. I have given him the container for him to go work on it. If he decides not to use that container, that's all on him and it's not on you. But once he has that container, once he knows how to actually be in play and be in creativity and things like that and create for himself, then the male will awaken. And that male will awaken in a healthy masculine, not in a toxic masculine. You all know what the red signs and red flags are. You 100% know what they are. I mean, so many people that I will say play oblivious to being like, no, you know. You can sense in your gut and your spirit when someone is not operating from healthy masculine or they're not headed towards healthy masculine. It's okay to meet someone that's not fully in their healthy masculine because we all fucking need work. None of us are perfect.
Yeah, it's true. And I'm going to bring that back to the twin flame system that I talk about all the time. When you change the state of your consciousness, it affects your twin's consciousness because it's you in a different timeline. You are the same spirit. You're just different souls, different humans leading different lives, where you have the element of the shared consciousness. And when you change the state of your consciousness and your twin gets that pull and they want to be around you, that's the likelihood of them awakening or understanding their toxic ways are much higher because they want to be with you and they understand that they are not energetic match to you. So now, in order for them to be with you, they actually need to fucking change something about their egoic avatar, whether that looks like therapy, whether that looks like coaching or healing or going and spending some time in Vipassana meditation retreat. I don't fucking know what that looks like for each individual, but your task as the feminine awakening is separating yourself from the ego so that you don't have and don't place the expectation on your twin flame as if like how it's supposed to look like, how they're supposed to show up, because that is not the purpose of this journey. The purpose of this journey is for you to awaken and to let it go, to release, to get to the state of non-attachment and enlightenment and serve this world through your consciousness, through raising the collective consciousness. So
it's really like you're saying it. It's almost like the 3D world. Like men, we don't birth children. We're unable to. We don't have that portal. We don't have that connection to the divine. As women, you you have that portal. You have that portal of creativity. So it is pretty much on you in some belief systems that you have to create the twin flame connection, and then it's on the man to protect it. That's why they're like, men are the protectors. The man's going to know how to protect it, but he's not going to know what he's protecting until the thing is created. Or else he's just going to walk around doing the same thing, sleeping around with a bunch of different women, wondering, oh, what is it supposed to be like? What's it supposed to go? He's doing all those same things, not knowing what he's supposed to protect. He's trying to protect everyone and everything, or he's just shut off and just wants to protect himself and not feel anything. All most men know energetically is just how to protect or create, again, a container for something. Whether that container is healthy or not, it depends on the man and the work that he's doing. So,
Awesome. This is so valuable and so great, and I can see that people are very happy. Thank you so much for your presence and sharing your wisdom and knowledge. This was incredible, and I'm just so happy. All right, guys. Thank you so much for your presence and your time, and I will definitely do it again at some point, and I will go live next week, as always, answering your questions about twin flame system. But as always, the physics of twin flames explains how the system works in a very plain, easy to understand language. So if you need to change something and understand how the system works right very now, that is your link. Okay, thanks so much, Kadara. I love you so much. You're the best thing that happened to me.
oh,
Thank you.
I'm the best thing that happened to me too.
This is so true. All right. Take care.
I love you.
Bye.